Hello, welcome. This is Left Look, the premier independent podcast from the Gatto Institute, where we will be taking a look at Canadian arts, culture, and entertainment from an unbiased left-wing perspective. Voici Left Look, le premier podcast indépendant du Gatto Institute où nous examinerons les arts, la culture et le divertissement canadien d'un point de vue impartial de la gauche.
Hey, that was pretty good.
I think I give Julian too much flack.
Yeah, it's hard once you start trying to do it,
Yeah, Aculiere, I've never seen that word before. It was bienvenue when I left it alone 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, bienvenue is way easier to say.
Uh,
It heard you talking shit and it went, all right, I'm gonna up the difficulty on this guy.
Google Bard went through all the Left Look podcast episodes and was like, look how mean Jacob is to Julian every time he does this great intro. Speaking of which, I'm Jacob. I'm one of your hosts for this week. And hello, DJ. How are you doing this week?
I'm doing all right, thanks. I am also a host. Julian could not make it. He's busy trying to, I don't know, wrestle with a wildfire, I'm pretty sure.
I think it's familial obligations, but I
Oh,
could be wrong on that.
yeah, sorry. Maybe the wildfire was kind of like a metaphor.
He did freak me out that night he was down and we had a campfire, and I think he's been looking at wildfire data just too long. He was just super nervous about it. And I was just like,
Yeah,
the fire will be all right, my friend. But
yeah.
uh,
I mean, I get the logic. Like, that part wasn't wrong, but you gotta chill.
yeah, but there is a fire ban now in Ontario, so
Yeah, I mean, we really did just squeak in
yeah.
before the sparks went off, I
That's
suppose.
funny. I should say it is June 11th today.
Mm, yes, 2023. It is a Sunday.
It's always Sunday when we record. It's the Lord's Day,
Yes,
and so we must
yes.
honor him by putting out just the dog shittest of takes on like
Yeah,
anything we're not qualified about to talk about.
This is Julian in Post saying it's always Sunday in Philadelphia.
as it states, the Sabbath is a rest day, and we're resting. We're under arrest because we are having some bad
The
takes.
Sabbath, that's funny, but the Sabbath is Saturday.
Yeah, yeah. I never got that. That's more of like a me thing. I always assumed Sunday was like, okay,
Yeah,
the start of the week or whatever. It's the I guess probably all the
pagans.
Presbyterian bullshit. Yeah,
I just
that too.
I just don't understand if they needed Sunday, like the day that they worship the sun on, to
Uh-huh.
be that day. Why not just change the name Saturday to Sunday and Sunday to Saturday, and that
Yeah, right.
and then you could be adopt your little Jewish religion and still keep your pagan traditions.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's once again talking about a topic that I'm just completely unqualified to speak about, which is the days of the week and their history behind them.
Yeah. I mean, we all have to deal with the days of the week. So
I get to
as a person participating in society, I think you have a right to criticize
I
them.
get to comment at least and show my
Yeah.
inadequacies. Speaking of showing my inadequacies, I saw a piece of news this week that just fascinated me, and
Hmm.
it fascinated me because it touches my life, our lives actually. We both of us grew up in what I like to describe as the Wild West of the internet.
Yep.
Like, I basically had unrestricted internet access from the age of 5.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah, just know, the term helicopter parent really came about
yeah.
after
The,
we had already dug our teeth into the internet.
Once we had already wrought all the damage we could to our psyches, they were like, "Oh, that might have
Hmm.
not been good," right? Like,
Yeah. Oh, there are adults on here
yeah,
too. Uh-oh.
yeah. I tell this story often to make this point that when I was 8, the Iraq War started, right? And
Hmm.
right around that time, I saw a full video of someone being beheaded, and I
Ah,
remember thinking that's probably no good or something like
that's
that.
probably bad. Yeah.
And it's just like I'm glad that I had that unrestricted internet access. But
Uh-huh.
as I hung out with family kids this weekend, cousin.
Right.
And the internet that they've grown up on is just so different, so catered. You know what I mean? Uh,
Yeah, very it's very reflective of the, the liberal society we live in.
Mr. Beast is one of their favorites, and I have
Oh my
a
God.
burning rage against Mr. Beast, right? I
Hmm.
tried to make it really clear to the one who brought it up was like 10 or 11, and
Yeah.
I said you got to remember, just because they do good things for people doesn't mean they're a good person. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
could just see I'd just blown her mind. You know what I mean? Like, but anyways, I bring it up because Reddit is uh, Reddit is allowing third-party users to access their data for
Okay.
a price, right?
Oh.
If we understand the internet as like a river, and that the the great river flows and then it's got its tributaries and things like that, and eventually it ends up in the delta that ends in the sea.
Hmm. Right.
That's how I like to explain it, at least. Like, there are some social media sites that have more of a determinative effect. You have greater voting power if you are
Right.
more online in some spheres. Tumblr,
Right.
Twitter, and Reddit, in my mind at least, are like the three supreme. Uh,
Really?
yeah, maybe.
I would have thought you had said YouTube for sure.
Well, YouTube is more of the liberal space. You know what I mean? It is less of a. It's more of an authoritarian space too. There's
Oh, okay, so more of like a free thinking sphere.
Yeah, the actual anarchic free thinking. I guess 4chan I would include on there too.
Right.
That, like, where actual thoughts that people are gonna go talk about and for the next news cycle. That's where all of it is generated, is on those sites.
Uh-huh.
And then how they're talked about, I think YouTube is like the king of that. And then how it's disseminated to the public is like Instagram and Snapchat and things like that.
Right. Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook I would even consider even farther down the line, like the bottom
Yeah.
of the rung, right with TikTok, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, but so that there's like this cascading effect of information from like these nodes, these people that are like so online it's gross, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
That but they get to decide the conversation for the rest of everybody. And a number of years ago, Twitter had a similar thing where they had these third-party apps that the hardcore users would use to customize
Right.
their experience, right? Because they want
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
it's so that they could just interact with it in the way that they felt was best, right? Because they're smart enough to be able to do that. But that they got rid of that on Twitter, and it was a mess. And now Reddit
Hmm.
is going the same way. And so what has happened is like 100 of the top pages on Reddit, the pages that decide the discourse, have decided to go completely private, and
Jeez.
yeah, and not share any of their stuff with anybody else until Reddit decides to overturn this thing.
Hmm.
Because Apollo is the app that I'm reading here. I've got
Right.
an article from The Guardian that I've mined all this information from.
Okay.
It's called Reddit Communities to Go Dark in Protest Over Third-Party App Changes, and it is by an Alex Hearn. But not important. Where was I? Apollo. So Apollo is one of the main of these third-party apps, and they were saying that they would have to spend $5 per user per month to keep accessing the information that they've been doing to allow
Hmm.
these like incredibly online people to continue to do what they do, right? Like,
So the people paying for that app would need to charge that to its users?
yes, like there's no way Apollo can handle those costs, right?
Right.
Apollo is what it's like one of those sucker fish that hangs off the whale that is Reddit. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
a remora.
Yeah, and then the people are just like the gut bacteria inside that remora. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of forgot where I was going. Give me a second here. Apollo.
Sure.
Sorry, so this wildcat strike has happened, right? Basically, I'm
Okay.
describing it as a wildcat strike, but these aren't workers, right? They're not.
Hmm.
There's no money being made here, but they've decided that they're going to affect the bottom line of Reddit by not
Right.
participating all independently, so that they can make
And by withholding their content.
their labor. Yes, right.
Right.
And by doing this, that they hope to maintain the internet, or at least some semblance of the internet that we all
Hmm.
grew up with maintains itself, right? And I'm just wondering what kind of internet will appear over the next couple decades and how it will morph these kids. I feel uh, like the guy from Red Dead Redemption,
Uh-huh.
where I grew up in the last of the Wild West, right? The frontier is closed now. You can't find
Right.
the information on these weird message boards, or
Hmm.
these weird debates about very particular nuanced points on history and things like that, right? It's
Yeah.
all just mainstream consensus right now, and it is tending towards that with these chat bots
Uh-huh.
that are taking over, that go doing the looking for you.
Right.
That and that
Yeah, there's no need for a skill set that is like, to understand basic Boolean, to search for what you want, how to word it,
hmm hmm
how to properly scour the internet.
And so I do wish these Reddit people the best of luck in their strike, but
Yeah.
it's gonna fail, and I just wanted to use it as an opportunity to talk about the internet and its structures writ large. You know what I mean?
That's interesting. I've got two things I want to say about that. First, um, you're telling me they're withholding the memes?
Yes,
We're at a point in the internet's history where withholding memes is the bargaining chip, and that's delightful.
isn't it?
That's you know, uh, and I feel like, um, and this is kind of a good segue. Um, you mentioned the eras, but I think maybe we've already gone through a few.
Yeah, for sure.
The right, because when I mentioned withholding the memes, it kind of struck me. Man, do you remember 2010 when it was like, Anxiety Penguin and Rage Face and
Oh yeah.
the infancy of the meme? And we're well beyond that. That in itself is like its own era,
The me-
in my mind.
the memeologists call them first generation memes. I think
Yeah,
and then we're on fourth or fifth generation memes at this point now,
right.
where their self referentiality is like
Yeah, we're
the totality of it.
we're at a point of like meta meme,
Yes.
which is delightful. Um, and I think on that point, it's funny that you can chronologize. What's the word there?
That works.
To put in order.
Yeah.
You can put them in order based on the Wojak.
Yes.
Oh, does it have this Wojak? Oh yeah, that's second gen.
As the Wojak lore has become more and more expansive, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can trace which generation of meme you're at. No, it's a great bellwether. Be-
Yeah, we're
Bellwether,
we're at a
just sorry, just to do this bit quickly.
uh,
Bellwether is a word I learned how to spell this week, so I am an idiot. I would like to point out at this
what
point.
uh what was the typo you put out?
It was bell and then the word weather, like,
Right,
and I was like,
right.
that doesn't look right,
No.
and I looked it up. And I was like, you are an idiot, Jacob. Remember that.
Yeah, I hate compound words like that where it's like, do you have a hyphen? Are you two words?
hmm
Are you one word? It always gets you. Um, right. So to bring that back, right? Memes, whatnot. To bring it back to our childhood, you mentioned this video, right? You watched when you were 8, and I don't mean this as flack, but man, when I was 8, I was on frickin' Neopets
Yeah.
and like like a probably Newgrounds, even though I shouldn't have been, right?
hmm
For like the funny haha games, even though Newgrounds definitely had porn back then
hmm
and still does. But where I'm going with this is yeah, we're at a point in the internet's history where yeah, the frontier has shifted.
hmm
Children will never be able. There is like what I can't think of it. What's a freeware access game that children can play and like have a safe environment online?
None. Yeah.
None, right? There's no mini clips. There's no addicting games. There's no math games or whatever that was.
The little cousins that I had over this weekend, they were the one was obsessed with this merge game, right?
Hmm.
And merge games to me are just like the apocalypse of brain, right? Like
Right.
they're so mindless and bad for you, basically, right?
Yeah.
That they just allow you to combine things to make other prettier things, right? And they're basically just meant to give you dopamine and
Absolutely.
take up your time, right?
And to steal your money
Yeah.
whenever possible. Like, oh, can't do the merging. Pay me.
But I recommended to her, sorry, the mom. The mom said that they play checkers all the time and that she
Right.
shows no mercy. So that's gonna have to be blurted out. No, it doesn't have to be. It's a first name.
What first name? What is he talking about? Did I miss something? Am I losing it? I'm looking for something to bleep here and I'm not finding anything. Is their first name Mom? Well, whatever.
But anyways, the kid is playing checkers against her mom, and the mom's showing no mercy to her. And I was like, well, you should just put chess.com on her iPad then.
Oh yeah.
The mom's always worried about too much iPad time, which is, it's good she's worried about it. But like my opinion on the kids in this new frontier of internet is that you have to be watching, and then hopefully at the same time they not know that you're watching. You know what I mean? And then and basically you only ever bring it up if it's like really extreme, whatever they've found.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and because then they won't trust you otherwise, right? Or they'll hide things more often, or they'll get really cynical when they do find those things, right?
Yeah, it's very important to have an open relationship with that kind of thing. Like, hey, I see, like, I respect your freedom as my offspring, but I see and know that as like somebody older than you, what you're doing right now is maybe kind of not good.
Yeah, and they're just people too, and they grew up without the internet, right? So they can't even, they're a little more conservative. They can't even really empathize with the amount of information this like new brain has access to all the time, right?
Yeah.
And so I tried to make clear to them, basically, she's going to have found everything by the time she's 14 or 15. Like, there's nothing she won't know, you know what I mean? And you just basically, because of that, have to be really accepting of it, or otherwise you will have no determining factor on her personality, right?
Yeah, or be yourself up to speed.
Yes.
Like at least have a cursory knowledge of the things going on that your child or otherwise would know.
But even these solutions that I presented, like the chess.com, right? Because that's at least, it's good for the brain, you know what I mean? That's a completely corporately catered thing, right? Like
Absolutely.
I spent my childhood, it was right when I got onto the computer was right at the end of the first age of strategic games, like Age of Empires, right? And so I was obsessed with what I was obsessed about basically from that age, and that's all I did online. Is I wanted to read about politics, I wanted to read about history, I wanted to read about war, and that's all I did all the time. And I could do that ad infinitum. There was no end of it, and there was always another viewpoint to look at, and it was not catered to me. I had to go looking for it, you know what I mean? But
yeah, I think there's an important distinction to be made here, that you and I, right, at our age, we had to, right, we came after a generation that maybe peered into the internet and said, okay, great. But mostly dealt with it on like a business end, whereas we were fully immersed in it. We were like at an age where we were cognizant, we were like relatively aware, and then the internet was there too.
Yeah,
we had to kind of dive in and scoop our way through and like, okay, this place is weird. We had to get our bearings.
I got my first computer, so the family got its first computer when I was 5, right? And I think that's probably
around the same
very
time
similar.
for me.
Yeah. And so I'm already awake, I'm not a baby or whatever, right?
Yeah.
At that point. But the just instant and unsupervised, completely unsupervised, you know what I mean? Like, they never looked into what I was looking up on the internet. They were never over my shoulder while I was on the computer. And I was just on it all the time, you know what I mean? Like, nonstop. Nothing else I wanted to do was other than be on that computer, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
it's it's different for kids today who are almost like, loop, out of the womb, here's your iPad, baby. Here's your baby iPad games to keep you distracted.
Yeah, that makes me nervous, right? And I'm someone who's very permissive on my whole view of it. You like basically let them run wild in the internet, right? They'll be fine. But like, even that, I don't want them while their brain structures are developing. While it's turning from oatmeal up top into a fat blob, that they're like completely dependent on those dopamine structures of like the return and
Yeah.
the flashing bright lights and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, these like and I'm talking from a viewpoint of having a niece and a nephew, 10 and 8 respectively, that basically grew up like that, right?
Mhm.
And these kids just have no understanding of making a mistake and learning from it, or the relative value of working for a thing.
Yeah.
And I say that I don't want to, I'm not coming out here as a boomer. Kids these days don't work.
These Gen
I mean that.
Alphas, no, they
Yeah, these Gen Zers, these Gen Alphas are so freaking lazy. I
no,
mean that in the sense of like they would never have an issue,
Yeah.
right? Or a curiosity.
that they couldn't solve immediately.
Well, no, right? That they don't, it's like they can't even get to point A to point B. Like, how do I figure out the information?
Mm.
Whereas, my brain is like, just read a freaking book,
Yeah.
check a book, look up online. They're just like, I wonder why this thing happens. It's not instantly aware to me, so I will not look into it any further.
Really, that's how you see
Yeah,
them?
it's very. There's no.
Inquisitiveness.
Yes, exactly. There's no drive to want to be curious.
I guess because information has lost its value. You know what I mean? That
Yeah, absolutely.
there's no return on knowing something. Like
Yeah.
when you're a kid and you know something that your parents are asking about, you get that dopamine feedback from just being able to give them what they wanted and the smile they give you or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But nowadays, information is all accessible all the time, and so it's someone else's job, basically, is how you would view it as a kid.
Yeah, kind of. For example, right, a few weeks ago, I was sitting down with my nephew, and he had on a video, right? There was this fellow making a flip book, and he had in this YouTuber in his youth had made the same flip book, as like as a child, and so he came back to it as an adult, as like an adult animator, and he was like, I'm gonna remake this flip book.
Mm-hmm.
And my nephew was really digging it, and this was great because this was the first time I've sat down to watch a video with him that wasn't somebody playing Zombie Menace or this week's latest Minecraft update.
I don't mind the Minecraft so much, but I get the Zombie Menace thing. You know what I mean?
It's the video game videos are that's a whole different breed. But we're watching.
Sorry, at least just a comment, quick. At
Yeah,
least
yeah.
Minecraft has the breadth and the depth to it that you can you can associate that maybe there is more to learn out there than I understand. You know what I mean? Like,
Right, yeah. Minecraft definitely fosters that desire for curiosity that I'm really in favor of.
yeah,
But to get back, right, this dude's making this flip book, and my nephew's like, whoa, this looks like so much work. How is this dude making it?
yeah,
And it's just completely enamored by this and is so full of wonder, but at the same time just refuses to take that step. And I'm sitting there as his uncle who has sat through so many animation courses,
hundreds of hours.
who could like ad nauseum just spew so much information on him, and he just doesn't even like put it together. Like, wait, my uncle is an artist and might know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I could ask them.
Mm-hmm.
Just is like he's just like, whoa, this is cool, but I cannot get past that.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
sad.
I don't know if that speaks for the culture or just the mind of an 8-year-old, but I don't know. In a lot of regards, I don't have children, and neither do you.
No.
But and you throw back to our earlier comment of, hey, we're just talking shit about things we know absolutely nothing about.
Yeah.
But it does kind of scare me as somebody who's going on 30 years old and is looking to the generations coming after us and going, oh man, these are the ones who have to take care of us when we're old. Like, we're so screwed.
Yeah, the cry of every generation ever. But the internet is such a singular phenomenon that I can't associate it with anything less than the printing press 600 years ago, right? And,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
And the fear and the backlash and the outrage that technology presented, right?
Mhm.
It does make me a little nervous. You know what I mean? The ability to manipulate people has just been greatly expanded. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, and the advent of these AI chatbots is just another, another piece of the printing press machine that we're having to deal with.
It's like we heard about the first printing press in Prague or whatever, and we're in Frankfurt, and now they're putting up a factory of printing presses in our hometown now, right? It's a very similar thing, that the output of information that the powers that be want to be put out there is just dramatically jumping in productivity. I mean, just like
just in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
But yeah, power to the Redditors. Go get them.
Best of luck.
Best of luck. And you brought up here that you found this this article on The Guardian, was it?
Yeah. Well, I saw it on Instagram. I get most of my like I was talking about the flow earlier, right?
Right.
I have most of my views solidly settled from my time participating in the shitstorms that are Twitter and Reddit and things like that.
Right.
And now that I'm a full adult, I don't need to wade through the muck anymore. And so I get them secondhand from Instagram and, meme pages that I follow and things like that. And then
there's a funny analogy there that I think you'll appreciate.
Yeah.
You were formerly a private in the trenches, and since then you've proven yourself. You're an officer.
Yeah.
Things come to you now.
Yeah, exactly. I need to be able to tell others what the best thing is for, like, how to interpret the information that's coming. I'm much more in the YouTube sphere now, and that's probably why you were thinking that I would say YouTube. Is that I want to be able to interpret and direct what the trenches put out, right? But the trenches still get to decide everything. Like those 4chan guys, there's only like 10,000, 50,000 of them worldwide, basically, right?
Yeah.
And they make all the memes. Like Wojak is completely at their feet. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's always very interesting to trace like stuff like memes back to the source and find where was the seed planted here. And yeah, most of the time it is 4chan, but you get the odd things, straight out of Reddit, straight off of Twitter,
Tumblr.
Very rarely the like weird stuff that comes out of Tumblr. But it is very, it gets muddled together very, very easily.
It becomes like it just becomes part of the choir. I like to say that use the analogy of choirs for humanity. It's a very Christian notion that that as there are choirs on earth, and that there are people who direct it, that above in heaven that there are even greater choirs of angels all the way up to God, right?
Yeah.
And that there are some people who are like gods among us, and that when they sing or when they speak, right, that they completely change the tone of the whole conversation, but it's immediately subsumed. You know what I mean? Like it immediately just becomes part of the choir, part of the choral.
Yeah. Just the the onlookers. The inner sphere next to that god is immediately just reverberating what they've preached.
I saw a green text post from 4chan a couple of weeks ago, and it was about a guy who was in therapy, and he's very depressed, but he says he let the psychiatrist know that he was on 4chan, and he had made like dozens or hundreds of memes that people had seen millions and millions of times, right? That he was basically the well from which culture was springing forth, right? And so he goes in for his next therapy session, and there are 5 psychiatrists there sitting in a panel. And he gets really scared, and he goes, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go back anymore. And the therapist rings him up and goes, "Don't be scared. We will pay for everything, but we really want to use you as a case study," right? Like,
oh God,
we really, really want to understand what you're about. You know what I mean? And I loved that. I was like, yeah, that's hilarious. And also, I don't think anybody on 4chan should be going to therapy. They will put you in fucking behind bars. Like,
yeah, they will throw you in a straitjacket immediately.
Yeah, you are nuts, right? That is why you are controlling the narrative. It's because you're crazy.
Only the people who have quite a bit wrong with them end up and stay on 4chan.
Exactly, right? Like, I can appreciate like the genius that some of the moments take, right? And like the wittiness of the conversations and the back and forth and the factionalisms that appear on that page, but I am nowhere near messed up enough to spend my time on there, right? Like,
Yeah,
Uh,
I remember end of high school, I tried dipping my toes in, but man, what a terrifying battle zone.
yeah, a toxic space. Uh,
Uh-huh.
did you want to talk about your bit that we talked about before this?
Sure, yeah, sorry, we got talking about something else. You brought up The Guardian, and man, I was just going to say that you are so fortunate to
Why?
be able to read The Guardian's news.
Why? It's
I
free.
have, it is free usually, but unlike most other news proprietors,
Uh-huh.
which are not, I think at least two or three times this week, the New Yorker, the Atlantic, the New York Times.
Yeah.
I just got walled. Three beautiful looking articles.
The New York
Just,
Times. Sorry, go ahead. You keep rolling.
I absolutely flabbergasted that the access to news in the year 2023 is paywalled.
Hmm. If I was the New York Times, I there would be nothing paywalled, and I'd be putting out everything all the time, right? Like you have the legacy and the name that you can control whatever narrative you want, and you're
Hmm.
like, not jumping into that pool because you want to dip your toe into the paid subscription model. That is not your path. You are like
No.
the Lord of Words, basically, right?
Hmm.
And many of the publications that you mentioned are also like that. The Atlantic, right? The Atlantic gets a lot of necessary flack. They're a right wing,
Uh-huh.
uh, you know, piece of shit rag, basically,
Yeah.
right? But like, it's such a good perspective to be able to look and to see what the professional Democrat, Republican, the independent class is thinking of about what the issue of the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for them to just be like, sorry, we don't want as many people as possible to be able to view those things. It's just like such a backwards way of thinking about what their role is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. It's also pretty scary that all this information is just being locked. Mm. Poor people? No, get out. You
Hmm.
cannot have thoughts about our little hug box over here. How dare you?
I think that eventually, when the American Julius Caesar rises, as I am predicting, that
Hmm.
that along with the dole, the what's it called? The
Abdul?
No, like the grain dole from ancient Rome. They would give free
Oh,
food and games and circuses, right?
right.
The things that keep you entertained and complacent. I think one of the things will be like news, the
Hmm.
controlled news, like almost state news apparatuses, but
Yeah.
for a joint chiefs of staff kind of relation. They'll have like an MSNBC all the way to the Atlantic is I think as far right as they'll allow to
Right.
go, and it'll be a discourse between the very griller section of society, but it'll be available to all U.S. citizens all the time, and
Right.
I think that's how they'll deal with that when
It'll just be like a watered down version of what's going on.
exactly when they go full imperial, they will get it, and then your wish to have access to those things will become your nightmare. Is basically
Yeah.
where I was going with that, but yeah, no, I could never understand the impetus. Like the people who get to the top of those chains, those corporate hierarchies, like the New York Times, they are so thoroughly vetted to be liberals. You know what I mean, so
Hmm.
uh, it's just so against their being to think the way that I'm thinking right now, right? Like that
Hmm.
we got to go for it. We got to go all in. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just not there for them. They just can't do it.
Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe we'll see a change someday. I'm not hopeful, but it would be. I want to say it would be nice, but there are other avenues to gather news. I'm not completely without resource here, but
You're a very informed man, despite your gripes. All the same, you know what I mean? Like,
it's yeah. I mean, browsing Pocket's annoying, but
mhm.
much like you said, you get your information through Instagram. There's we have the luxury of getting on the beat, so to speak. We can be in there. We can know what's going on.
Yeah, I get the headline that will make me go look it up what the actual issue is, and then I can look
Hmm.
into it on my own. But I don't need to be, reading all the articles anymore. I just don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a good article's a good article. Don't get me wrong, but
Hmm.
if you really want to know what's going on, just go look for it. Just
Yeah.
go figure it out.
go enjoy like 10 or 12 meme pages that are like really radical on either side, right? Like they'll let you know, because again, the only coherent ideologies are socialism and fascism. They're the ones that are directing everything, and they're the crazies that inhabit 4chan and things like that. So
Yeah.
Or at least they're derivatives, right? Like the people who run meme pages are kind of a lesser online creature than the 4chan
For sure.
people, but
Yeah.
they're of the same stripe.
Yeah, they're just kind of like a little more timid. They don't want to be right in there, but they just want to have a peek, let everyone else know, reap the benefits.
So I'm going to segue.
Sure.
It's pretty good. You might have even done better than Adam at it. Anyways, I wanted to talk about the Trump indictment first, because I think that'll just be a quick little bit that we could do.
Okay.
Did you hear about
Do you mean
these?
the most recent one?
Yeah, the one about the Mar-a-Lago documents that he was withholding.
Right, the ones that should have been classified but weren't.
They were classified, but he said he declassified them, but it's not apparent that he had the authority to just declare them declassified. I think it's all a big, kabuki, that nothing he did is technically wrong enough for them to actually get him on it. And even beyond that, the timeline is really, well, actually, I'm going to stay in the details for a bit longer before I blow my load like that.
Sure.
So there was this one document that I think is what they're using as their smoking gun, basically. And from what I read, you can't gather exactly what it was about, but it was a general outline of the plan to invade Iran, right? Like, they have a plan. Every country has a plan for war with everybody, right? If you're going to have generals who are super big brained just sitting around doing nothing, they might as well come up with some pretty dope plans, right?
And ideally, you want to keep them busy. Otherwise, that's how coups happen.
Yeah, they do right-wing reactionary stuff, trying to foster the greatest national security state they can, because that's all those psychos know how to do, basically, right? But yeah, so they had this plan, or Donald Trump has this plan to invade Iran, and apparently he showed Kid Rock this plan, and Kid Rock is quoted as saying to one of the staff members as, "Should I be in on this?"
Yeah.
there's this map with these little flags and the units and like the numbers and the death expectations, and he's just like, I don't know if this really deranged right-wing man, someone who pretends to be lower class so that he can be a rocker when he grew up in like a palatial estate. You know what I mean? A disgusting fuck, Kid Rock, right? And
Absolutely.
Even he was like, I don't know, Donnie, this is a little fucked up for me.
Yeah.
Like, and
I don't know, man. I'm a civilian at the end of the day. Is this right?
These seem like big secrets to me, Don. And yeah, I just thought that was hilarious, right? But the most important thing is that this is not going to send Donald Trump to prison. Just not going to happen. Because it stays in the technicalities of things and your interpretation of the Constitution, and there's something called the presidential, I don't remember the name of the theory, sorry, the unified whatever. The basis of the theory is that any action that a president takes is obviously legal by the definition of them being the president, right?
Right.
It's basically the divine right of kings 2.0, and it's got a lot of power because they're in charge, so of course they can do what they'd like. You know what I mean? Like it's not I'm not making some complicated legal point here. It's just like that's how power works. Of course they can do that, right?
Yeah, the by being president, they then have the authority to just go, well, what I say goes.
Exactly. And because there was no assassination or coup attempt, then by definition, everyone else acceded to his decisions to do these things, right? It's not like the CIA and the FBI didn't know every move he was making, the whole time. I've sworn off the word those.
Good for you.
Yeah. But I really like that one because
the ghosts.
Ghosts, yeah.
Anyways, there had a good one the other week. Glowies.
Glowies. Phantoms.
The glowies.
Yeah.
Yeah, phantoms. That's a good one. I dig that.
anyways, these spies, right? These spies who their institutions really run the foreign policy of all the countries. The whole time decided that he was within the margin of error, right? Like that he was not doing anything enough to threaten anybody, including leaking these secrets. There's a thing I was hearing on CNN just recently that they said that they were even exposing, that Trump was even exposing cipher secrets, which means,
Oh.
and cipher secrets is just a word that means, or a phrase that means showing the enemy that they can know that we know how to break their codes, right?
Right.
And he used the analogy of the imitation game in World War II, right? Benedict Cumberbatch says we can't use this information to the fullest of our abilities because it is imperative, basically, that we don't let the Germans find out that we broke the codes, or they'll change
Right.
the codes, right?
Yeah.
And
You got to play dumb a little bit.
while that sounds like a really great thought, and it was a great thought for the 1940s, right? But it is public information now that we, meaning the American Empire, has
Right.
levels of access to every level of government, like throughout the world. You know what I mean? Like Russia, for instance, there's not anything that happens in Russia that the United States doesn't know about beforehand and has several forms about already, right? Like the army, the intelligence services, they're all infiltrated. We have so much money, we have so much power, right? That the amount of intelligence information that we can gather from them is near total at all times. You know what I mean? And so that kind of shit, that's not going to really fly because it's public information that we've broken all their codes. In fact, they know that we've broken their codes, and in fact, they know it to such an extent that when America does war games against someone like Iran, they base the information infiltration, right? The complete infiltration of their information or apparatus as a measure of their war, right? So I like to say that there was a war game where a brigadier general from America sunk 3 carriers, right? And he did it by using a complete analog system of he cut out holes in Korans and transmitted the messages of the coordinates of these aircraft carriers by motorcycle and and written paper, so that they couldn't be they couldn't have foreknowledge of that at least. And then he sunk those carriers by just firing more missiles at them at once than they could shoot down, right? But if the Americans had foreknowledge, they would have had more destroyers around them, aircraft in the air that could have shot it down, and it wouldn't have been a thing. But because they relied on the reliance of full informational systems, that it just becomes a self-defeating thing. So the point of that is we don't live in the 1940s anymore, and in fact, it's much more complicated than that nowadays, right?
Sure.
It was already ridiculously complicated when Benedict Cumberbatch says we can't let them know that we know, and it's like 10 steps beyond that at this point, right? Like
just with the rate of how information moves, right?
We know and they know, and we both know, but we also have to try and hide our intentions the whole time. It is. It's like 10D chess compared to 4D chess. You know what I mean? Like,
the steps there are just too deep for the human mind to comprehend.
Yeah, like most human minds. I'm sure there are gods among us who are, they have that 150 IQ that are just like, they direct everything. But I'll never be able to comprehend it. As smart as I think I am too limited to engage in that kind of, battle of genius. But
it's kind of a skill set,
Yeah, I don't know. But either way, the point of the bit is that Donald Trump is not going to prison, and the timeline is the most important thing on this, right? He goes to trial now, right? Trial takes a year, no matter what, right? And in fact, the courts will make it take the regular amount of time because they will desperately not want to make this seem as though it's a political thing, right? Even though it obviously is. The Republican donors that put Trump in power in the first place are tired of him, and they're tired that the dog is off the chain and is just running wild, right? They want DeSantis to be in, and DeSantis is wildly unpopular, and so they've okayed this basically political inquisition, right? But
Yeah, it's I just want to and maybe get your take on this before you get too down the line. I did hear like the smallest snippet about this on the radio yesterday,
mhm,
and I think it was the district attorney or whatever leading this case
yeah,
they were very confident that this is a direct quote from whoever it is, that they said that the net was tightening around Mr. Trump.
yeah. Well, he'll be convicted at trial, I have no
Uh-huh.
doubt. But it'll take a year, and by that time,
Right.
the election will be starting. But
Right.
he won't go to prison, right? And he'll appeal,
No.
right? And then it'll spend another year at least in appeals, and then we're in 2025, and
Right.
my bet is he's president again by that point, right?
Most likely.
And then he can't be convicted of anything again, right? He's sacrosanct or whatever, right?
Right.
He
He's
is the
above the
government.
law.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They say high crimes and treason are the only thing that disqualifies a president. And
Right.
how can you commit treason against the thing that you run? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't
Yeah.
make sense.
Unless the army comes in and says that's what you're doing, it's a tough one to prove.
During the English Civil War, well, after it actually, when they put the king on trial, that was his defense over and over again. It's like,
Right.
what right basically do you have to tell me how to be the king, right?
Yeah.
And
You're not the king.
I'm ordained by God, not you, right?
Yeah.
And it's logically much more powerful than what the Commonwealth came up with, right? But at the same time, the principles by which we all just kind of collectively abide were too overwhelming for us to not kill that king. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Donald Trump is nowhere near that. Like, he hasn't taken up arms against his own people. You know, he hasn't set loose the army to try and keep his power. He hasn't
Not
even
yet.
approached what we consider completely taboo. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah. Maybe in the next term though.
he can still rely on definitely in the next term. As soon as he
Mhm.
gets in, it's over. It's Jover.
It's Jover.
They're going full fascist if he gets in again.
Yep.
President Trump for life, in my opinion. But not that I want that. It's just what will happen. And,
Yeah. Most likely.
yeah, but anyways, so once it's in appeals, he'll still be out, and then it just won't matter to anybody. You know, like the people that the Republican base, especially,
Uh-huh.
they don't care. They do not care that he could be incriminated for crimes. They have their
Yeah.
own worldview. They're so angry at their own material conditions, right? That
Right.
everything has not gotten better for like 50 years solid now, right?
Mhm.
That they will irrationally support this man because he is the avatar of their vengeance, you know? The spirit and embodiment of their anger.
Yeah.
And so it just
The
won't matter.
He's like the homunculus, the golem that has taken on their spirit.
Yeah, yeah.
It's it is funny you mentioned that because basically after that quote in this radio bit that I heard was the host, the radio host saying that despite the legal implications of Donald Trump's current legal situation, his polling just every time somebody makes a big fuss about this, his polls just go up, and he gets more popular because his voting base just loves it.
They love the conflict. They love that they're sticking it to the people they deem responsible, right? Which is like this liberal. It's not an actual group of people. You know what I mean? It's this diverse intersection of interests, like this liberal professional class. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That has benefited more than they have, at least, from this neoliberal turn that we've been on.
Yeah, and just the just the perception of that, even whether or not it's reality or not, they see it and they're so convinced that everyone's out to get us.
The feeling is real. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
It
sorry.
very much is a kabuki theater, like you introduced it as.
Yeah. It's depressing. I don't know where I wanted to end up with it. I think I already got everything I wanted.
Probably.
He's not gonna go to prison.
Definitely not.
He will be able to run convicted of these crimes. They're not high crimes or treason or anything like that. You know, technical violations of the Espionage Act, a misunderstanding of what the declassification of documents is, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the monsters, the Republican, I almost said again. I almost did it again. The phantoms that run these intelligence apparatuses, they will not be irked enough by that to actually kill them, right? Which is the only consequence that really powerful men suffer, right? They either face no consequences or they die. That's it.
Yeah.
Right?
Those are the two options
for really powerful people, right?
Right. And now, kind of to extrapolate from that, this thing's it's gonna simmer in court, right?
Mm-hmm.
The can's going to get kicked down the road, and inevitably these backers, these donors are gonna have to go like, well, DeSantis sucks.
Terrible.
Guess we have to back this other idiot, and they're going to just like further kick the can down the road. They're going to spend resources just making sure none of this noise starts a fuss.
They will lockstep join behind Trump. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
all of the I almost said Zaibatsus, but I was talking about Germany. the great corporations of pre-World War II Germany, you know, Krupp, Rheinmetall,
Right.
Siemens, you know, like these cutting-edge technology firms, right? They got it behind lockstep behind Hitler, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody who was running those things thought he was distasteful as fuck. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like the corporal is what Paul von Hindenburg, the president who gave Hitler the chancellorship
Right.
during the crisis of 33, he always referred to him as that fucking corporal or something like
Yeah.
that, right? Like he was just disgusted that he had to deal with a common man, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll do the same thing. They will be like, "Wow, that is awful that we have to deal in good faith with this guy, but we're gonna do it anyways because it's in our interest, right?" Like,
Right. And I think that's an important caveat is that they don't not want to.
yeah,
It's like they hate them, but it's in our best interest to just become fascist along with this,
yeah.
you know, the soon to be consulate, the head emperor.
Like introducing some form of socialism or socialism light, like
Mm-hmm.
completely affordable housing, near free food. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like from grocery stores at least for staples, rice and beans. You know,
Right.
maybe chicken. Right?
Yeah, a form of universal basic income.
Yeah, something like that. Like that would stave this kind of crisis off for decades and decades
Mm-hmm.
to come. Right? They are unable to come to grips with that. That is the answer. Right? They're
Yeah.
It's verboten, you know,
Mm-hmm.
to extend that Hitler analogy.
Yeah, that in their minds would ruin them.
Mm-hmm.
To be altruistic, oh goodness, no. Let's just ride out this fascism thing and kill innocent people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very scary. We've got a few minutes left here. Let me ask you something.
Yes.
So when's the election? Next year? Late next year?
November of next year. Yeah.
November of next year. So we got maybe a year and a half here to enjoy the good things while they're good,
Yes.
as long as they're not on fire. November next year, the polls go up, the votes come in. Let's say it's a close vote. You know,
Mhm.
let's say it's some dirty stuff, like some what was that election with Hillary when he first ran?
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, he got the popular vote, but Hillary got the most of the
Hillary got the
college.
popular vote.
Okay, yes, sorry, I'm getting it backwards. He got the college votes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some dirty stuff where it's really close there. Do you see any backlash happening? Do you see, you know, blue states, you know, hard blue states like California or New York just getting up in arms?
No, liberal states don't secede. They.
I don't mean secede, but I mean, you know, like riot.
Oh yeah, there will be riots, but you know, the people decide nothing, right? Like
Right.
they'll be put down with like extreme prejudice. You know what I mean? Like,
Do you think, right? Because that's kind of where I thought, and you know, I think the same thing will happen. To be honest, do you think that's the point where this, you know, the points of high treason start to appear?
by Trump,
Yeah, where he's like, okay, we'll just bring in the army and shoot them, just kill them.
he won't need to. The
No?
governor, the mayor, like I was talking about with that Krupp and Siemens thing, the Rheinmetall,
Mhm.
the moneyed interests that be in the centers of riot that you predict, right? Like New York, for instance, or
Mhm.
Seattle or something like that. They will independently be like, we have to crush these rioters for the
Mhm.
welfare of the people around here, right? And them meaning themselves on that one,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
And so he like that's it just won't be his high treason, but he will quickly move to institute things that I do deem as high treason, right? Like
Mhm.
some kind of draft.
Right.
He'll push for war with China
Right.
immediately, right?
And it'll, like, I'm imagining it'll be framed as oh, we need security volunteers.
Mhm.
Our country is in turmoil. We need people to keep the peace.
As we have exited a war against terror in the Middle East
Mhm.
that required a special operations focus, we must return to the divisional deployment of wars of past against near-peer powers.
Right.
It is time for you to ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Right? I can
Of
just
course.
see some Trump puppet just, pulling the strings on that one, and no one will
Uh-huh.
bat an eye. You know what I mean? No one
Nope.
will bat an eye. And
Of course, if he says something remotely that eloquent, something's up.
Trump won't be that eloquent. He'll be like, we're the greatest country on earth. It's our duty to defend it. We have to fight China because they want our spot as number one, and
Uh-huh.
they're very bad people, very bad. You know, he'll do his cadence, but the people
Yeah.
under him, they're no dummies. You know what I mean?
No.
Like that, they will pull the levers that will advance themselves within that inner circle as they see. Right? Like,
Right. Now, do you see future Emperor Trump being kind of like a Julius Caesar? Do you see him getting stabbed 21 times?
Very interesting. No, he'll never declare himself emperor. I was just doing this point last night. He reminds me a lot from Roman history of Pompey Magnus, the
Okay.
guy, the guy who was the big deal right before Caesar, and who in fact Caesar fought for control of everything at the
Right.
end. Right? He was an old man by the time that had happened, and
Hmm.
the powers that be in Rome propped him up as their challenge to Caesar when Caesar had reached the zenith of his power. You know what I
Right.
mean? But when it was Pompey's time, decades before that, he reminds me of Trump like comedically, right?
Mm.
Pompey had a blonde wig that he liked to wear.
Oh,
He
goodness.
he uh, he wore a cloak that he swore was Alexander the Great's. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
goodness.
Who
Yeah.
died 300 years before that, right?
Yep.
And his body, Alexander the Great's body, famously disappears like
Mm.
30 years after the war, right? So like
Hmm.
for it to be Alexander the Great's cloak is it's just a lie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's obviously a lie, and he had a power to manipulate like the lower class people into getting into a frenzy and things like
Right.
that. But he was an empty figure. He had no vision like
Hmm.
Caesar did. He just wanted to be top dog. You know what I mean? He just needed it. He had some psychological issue.
Right.
I bet it was his relationship with his father, much like Trump, right?
Right.
That he just had to be the top guy. But then once he was there was no ambition beyond that. Like Caesar, once he got there, he was like, I need to give the poor people land here. I need to institute colonization efforts all over
Right.
Spain and North Italy. I need to become the state, right? So that
Yeah.
I can continue to make my name the greatest name in the history book that it can be.
Yeah. Being
So
number one isn't enough. I have to have a legacy.
I can't just be number one here. I need to be number one forever. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
For all time, right? And a Caesar type figure hasn't appeared in American history yet, but he will soon. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like as they get richer and richer too, like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk own $200 billion worth of assets each,
Hmm.
right? What happens when someone gets so rich that they own a country that isn't in the United States, right? They
Right.
own all of Egypt, for instance,
Hmm.
or all of South Africa, or something like that, right? They just have so much wealth that they can have real world power throughout in the colonies or the governances that the American empire runs, right?
Hmm.
It it will descend quickly from that part, because then the competition between the people who aren't like just suited to the role like Trump is. He's like a character that just fits that. He plays the part well.
Right. He's an actor.
He is a caricature of American triumphalism, right? And that it kind of just works, right? Whereas like Caesar had an IQ of 150. They say that when he was carried around on his litters, that he would answer 6 letters at once while he was trying to jockey for position as much as possible, right? And so he was like online 2,000 years before the internet, right? Basically.
Okay.
And so there are people like that who are even smarter, right? Even more ambitious, even more empty, that will do whatever it takes to get that power. And they will be presented that opportunity as America grows even wealthier, even more powerful. Yeah. But
so Trump in your mind is just destabilizing things for like the real villain has yet to appear.
He's a villain too, don't get me wrong, but the real monsters of men, the people who want to be kings of the world. Like Tears for Fears tells us everybody wants to rule the world, but you know, there are different shades of everybody. And as you get to the upper end of the IQ spectrum, you get soulless and you get dark. You know what I mean? Like
you get the season 3 villain. Like this is it. This is gonna be make or break.
Yeah, the season 1 villain is, he's terrifying and he'll kill anybody, right? But he isn't manipulating everyone that he interacts with at all times. You know what I mean? He just doesn't have it in him.
No.
Yeah.
No, the season 1 villain was just the build-up.
Exactly.
Just the act 1.
Yeah. That's really good.
That's that's power for you. It's just a Saturday morning cartoon, and we really hope the heroes show up.
Yeah.
And don't die. It's like not one of those really depressing shows, you know? It's not a Netflix series.
At least we get to bear witness to it and hopefully leverage it into an audience that will give us a comfortable life one day.
And maybe one day we'll have like one of those tiny homes.
Oh, a tiny home? That'd be great.
Yeah.
That's so beyond my means right now.
Right. Okay. I know we're over a bit of time here, but one of the articles I did read this week was one praising the new DIY tiny homes that Home Depot is offering.
Yeah.
Which, if that doesn't speak volumes for the dystopia we live in, that architecture and industry are dead and capitalism just is like, here's your house kit, do it yourself, you fucking poor person.
Like it's the not the 1900s writ large, but like the 1900s, you know, like where you buy a house made of wood and make your own homestead on the frontier, because that was actually the best plan right now. But now we're just such like a decrepit ant colony that we can't even muster the resources to centrally build these houses to top performance. You know what I mean? Like,
you want to know the worst part?
Yeah.
It's just the frame.
Oh.
Yeah, no doors, no windows, no nothing. You just buy the house kit to put up literally the skeleton.
That's so wild.
It's crazy. But hey.
That was a great point to end on, though. I enjoyed that.
Yeah. Can't go wrong. Summer is coming.
Oh, good job. I was wondering if I had to do it.
Yeah, no, we're good. Got all the bases. You're welcome, Julian.
Bye.
Thanks, dude.